You have to believe me, I didn't ignore the signs because I was stupid. I ignored them because I was desperate. There is a huge difference, and unless you've been down to your last $12 with rent due in 2 days, you might not get it. Right now, my hands are shaking so bad I can barely type this on my phone. But I need to get it down while it's fresh, while I'm still me. It started about 3 weeks ago. I remember sitting at that mahogany desk. It was massive, a dark, brooding slab of wood like something out of a museum, thinking, this is it. This is the fresh start. The room was dead silent. Not the cozy quiet of a library, but the heavy, suffocating quiet of a place that hasn't heard a real laugh in 50 years. It was a home office, technically, but the house was so big, it felt more like a warehouse for dust and old memories. My job was simple: archive assistant. That's what the online ad said. It sounded fancy, right? Professional. My boss, Mr. Sterling, told me he needed someone with an eye for detail to organize his family's papers. He lived in this sprawling estate about 20 kilometers outside the city. It was a nightmare commute. It took me 2 buses and a 2-kilometer walk along a road with no sidewalk to get there every morning. My shoes were always dusty by the time I arrived, but I didn't care. I was just happy to have a key card again. I was happy to have a purpose. I was trying so hard to be perfect. You know that feeling when you're walking on eggshells, but you're trying to make it look like you're dancing? That was me. I arrived 15 minutes early every single day, sitting on the stone wall outside until exactly 8:55 a.m. I lined up my highlighters by color, yellow, pink, blue, green, exactly 2 centimeters apart on the desk. I made sure my coffee cup was always on a coaster so I wouldn't leave a ring on his precious wood. I answered Mr. Sterling's emails within 30 seconds of receiving them, even if he was just in the next room. I wanted him to look at me and see someone indispensable. I wanted to be the good one, the reliable one. The office had these tall windows that looked out onto a gray, overgrown garden where nothing seemed to bloom, just thorns and brown leaves. It was always cold in there. I'd sit in my knitted cardigan, typing away, shivering a little. Sometimes I'd hear thumping upstairs, like heavy furniture being dragged across the floorboards. Thud, screech, thud. A normal person would ask, "Hey, what's that noise?" Or maybe, "Is someone else here?" But I just turned up the brightness on my monitor and typed faster. I smiled at the empty room. I am a professional, I told myself. Professionals don't ask nosy questions about their boss's attic noises. Professionals are grateful for the paycheck. I guess I should tell you why I was acting like such a nervous wreck. Why I was willing to work in a freezing house for a man who barely made eye contact with me. 6 months ago, I was living the dream, or what I thought was the dream. I had landed a junior associate role at Vantage Marketing. It was huge for me. Glass walls, free espresso machines, beanbag chairs in the break room, the whole startup but corporate vibe. I bought a whole new wardrobe on credit. I called my mom crying when I got the offer letter. She told me, "Finally, Clara, finally, you're doing something real." That finally stuck in my ribs like a knife. It implied that everything I did before was fake. I lasted 3 months. It wasn't even something big. I didn't steal money or curse out a client. It was a corporate restructuring. That's what they called it. My manager, a woman named Helga, who I thought was my friend, we got lunch together every day. She called me into a glass-walled office on a Tuesday morning. She didn't even look sad. She just slid a paper across the table and said, "We just don't think you're the right culture fit, Clara. We need someone with a bit more spark." Security walked me out like I was a criminal. I I had to carry a cardboard box with my stapler and a half-dead succulent past everyone I knew. They all looked down at their keyboards. No one said goodbye. I sat on the curb outside the building for 2 hours because I couldn't bring myself to get on the train. I couldn't face going home. I couldn't face calling my mom and hearing that disappointed sigh. You know the one. The sound that says, "I knew you couldn't handle it." That feeling of total, utter rejection, it broke something in me. I felt small, useless. So when I got this job with Mr. Sterling, I promised myself I would be bulletproof. No mistakes, no culture fit issues. I would be whatever he needed me to be. If he wanted me to work in the dark, fine. If he wanted me to sort papers that smelled like rot and vinegar, no problem. I was so terrified of failing again that I let myself walk right into the trap. I was so busy trying to be a good employee that I forgot to be a person who wants to stay alive. God, I just wanted to do a good job. That's all. I just wanted to work. The weirdness didn't hit me all at once. It crept in, like the damp smell of the house. At first, Mr. Sterling seemed fatherly. He was older, maybe late 50s, always wearing these heavy wool suits that smelled like expensive tobacco and something sweeter, like vanilla that had gone off. He'd bring me tea in fine china cups. He'd say things like, "You're a hard worker, Clara. Rare these days. Very rare." And I'd just beam. I'd soak up that praise like a dried out sponge. But then, the boundaries started to blur. It was a Tuesday. I was scanning some old land deeds, trying to decipher the handwriting, when he walked in. He didn't knock. He just kind of materialized in the doorway. He walked over to my desk, way too close. I could smell that stale cologne. It made my stomach turn a little, but I kept my professional face on. "It's drafty in here, isn't it, Clara?" he asked. His voice was soft, almost oily. "I'm fine, Mr. Sterling. Really," I said, reaching for my sweater. "Nonsense. We can't have you catching a chill." He walked over to the heavy oak door, the only way out of the office, and closed it. Then, very deliberately, he turned the brass key in the lock. Click. The sound was so loud in the quiet room, my heart did this funny stutter. "Just to keep the warmth in," he said, slipping the key into his vest pocket. He smiled, but his eyes, they were flat, heavy, like he was watching a fish in a bowl. "Oh, okay. Thank you," I stammered. I told myself it was normal. Old houses have bad insulation. He was being considerate. But for the rest of the day, every time I needed to use the bathroom, I had to ask him to unlock the door. And every time I asked, he'd take just a few seconds too long to find the key, watching me squirm, watching me wait for his permission to move. And the worst part? I thanked him every time. 3 days later, I found the drawer. Mr. Sterling had gone into the city for a meeting, a rare occurrence. He left me a list of tasks that was a mile long, probably to make sure I didn't have time to think. One of the tasks was to reorganize the bottom file cabinet, the one stuck in the shadowy corner behind the massive bookshelf. I was on my knees, pulling out dusty folders, my allergies going haywire. The cabinet was jammed. I yanked on the bottom drawer, bracing my foot against the wood, and it suddenly flew open with a screech of rusted metal. It wasn't full of papers. It was full of stuff. Personal stuff. There was a pink hairbrush with strands of blonde hair still caught in the bristles, a keychain with a little plastic panda on it, a tube of lipstick worn down to the nub, a pair of reading glasses with the correct lens. It looked like the contents of a purse dumped out. But it wasn't just one purse. The styles were all different. The lipstick looked like something from the 90s. The glasses looked modern. I reached in and picked up a small, spiral-bound notebook. It was cheap, the kind you buy at a drugstore. I opened it. The handwriting was bubbly, looped. Day 1, Mr. S seems nice. The house is creepy, LOL, but the pay is amazing. Maybe I can finally save up for that trip to Italy. I turned the page. Day 4. He keeps standing behind me. I can hear him breathing. I turned another page. My fingers were cold. Day 10. The door's locked again. I don't like the way he looks at my hands. I want to go home. The entries stopped there. I dropped the notebook like it was burning me. I looked at the pile of lost things. The panda keychain seemed to be staring up at me. These weren't lost items. They were trophies. Suddenly, the air in the room felt heavy, thick. I heard a floorboard creak. Not upstairs, not outside. Right behind me. I froze. I hadn't heard the front door open. I hadn't heard the car. Finding everything in order, Clara? His voice was right at my ear. I could smell the tobacco. I could smell the stale vanilla. He was so close, I could feel the heat radiating off his suit. I hadn't even heard him breathe. I didn't scream. I wanted to, but the fear of losing my job, that pathetic, ingrained reflex, made me swallow it. I stood up, dusting off my knees, forcing a smile that felt like it was going to crack my face open. Yes, just organizing. Very thorough. I went home that night and I threw up. I knew I couldn't go back. I knew it. But then I looked at my bank account. I looked at the eviction notice I'd hidden under a magnet on my fridge. Just one more week, I lied to myself. I'll find something else and then I'll leave. Miraculously, 2 days later, I got a call back. An old application for a receptionist gig at a dentist's office. It paid less, but it was safe. It was public. I accepted it on the spot. I felt lighter, free. I walked into Mr. Sterling's office that afternoon with my resignation letter, typed out, crisp and clean. "Mr. Sterling," I said, my voice only shaking a little. I have to give my notice. I found another opportunity." He didn't look up from his desk. He just kept writing with his fountain pen. Scratch, scratch, scratch. "No," he said. "Excuse me?" I said no. He finally looked up. The fatherly mask was gone. His face was hard, cold like the stone gargoyles on the roof. "You signed a contract, Clara. Did you read Clause 14B? I skimmed it." He opened a drawer and pulled out my contract. He pointed a thick, pale finger at a paragraph of tiny text. "In the event of termination prior to project completion, the employee agrees to pay a liquidation fee of $15,000 to cover recruitment and administrative losses." $15,000? I whispered. I felt the blood drain out of my legs. I didn't have 1,500, let alone 15,000. That amount of money might as well have been $1 billion to me. You can leave, he said, leaning back in his chair, that flat smile returning, as soon as you cut me a check. Or you can finish the archive. I have a new batch of files coming in tonight. Very sensitive, very urgent. Tonight? If you finish them by morning, I'll waive the fee. I'll even give you a severance bonus. He stood up and walked around the desk. He stopped between me and the door. He was holding the key. It's just one night, Clara. You're a professional, aren't you? I looked at the window. The sun was setting, casting long black shadows across the garden. The bus had already left. Okay, I whispered. One night. He smiled, and then he locked the door. The house felt different at night. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was holding its breath. He put me in the study with a single desk lamp. The rest of the room was swallowed by shadows. The air conditioner rattled in the wall, spewing out this metallic, dusty air that tasted like old pennies. It was hot, that sticky late summer heat that makes your clothes cling to your skin. But I was freezing. The files, he had said, pointing to a stack of manila folders. I opened the first one. It was empty. My brow furrowed. I checked the back, shook it. Nothing. I opened the second one. Empty. I opened the third. It wasn't empty. It was a photo. A grainy, zoomed-in photo of me. I was at the bus stop looking at my phone. I was wearing the coat I bought 2 weeks ago. My stomach dropped so fast, I felt dizzy. I flipped through the rest. Me walking to the front gate. Me eating a sandwich in the park. Me crying on the curb outside my old office. He hadn't hired me because I was good at organizing. He hadn't hired me because I had an eye for detail. He hired me because I was broken. Because I was easy. Because I had no one who would come looking for me if I just disappeared during a late shift. Very sensitive material, a voice said from the darkness. I spun around. He was standing just outside the circle of light from the desk lamp. He had taken off his suit jacket. His sleeves were rolled up. You took these, I whispered, backing up until my hips hit the heavy mahogany desk. I like to vet my employees thoroughly, he said. He took a step forward, then another. He wasn't smiling anymore. That fatherly mask, the professional facade, it was gone. His face was slack, his eyes wide and hungry. He looked like he was looking at a meal. Mr. Sterling, I'm leaving. Now, the contract, Clara. He purred as he took another step. He was between me and the door. You haven't finished the work. I don't care, I shouted, but my voice sounded thin, pathetic. But you do, he said. He reached out and clicked off the wall switch. The room plunged into darkness, save for the small yellow pool of light from my desk lamp. You care so much about being good, about being kept. You're a very good girl, Clara. He lunged. It wasn't like in the movies. There was no witty banter, just the smell of stale vanilla and sweat crashing into me. His hands were heavy, wet, grabbing at my shoulders, my hair. He was surprisingly strong, his weight pinning me against the desk. I could feel his breath on my neck, hot and gross. "Please," I screamed, thrashing against him. "I'll do the work. I'll do it." "The work is done," he whispered, his face inches from mine. His fingers dug into my arm, bruising the skin. My hand scrabbled blindly across the desk. I knocked over the cup of highlighters. My fingers brushed against the cool, smooth surface of the brass paperweight. It was shaped like a lion. It was heavy, solid. I didn't think, I didn't decide. My arm just moved on instinct. I swung it hard. There was a sick, wet thud as the brass hit his temple. He grunted, his grip loosening for a second, but he didn't fall. He looked at me, confused, blood starting to trickle down his face. You took these," I started, reaching for me again. I swung again, and again, and again. Thud, crunch, squish. I couldn't stop. I was screaming, a high animal noise that didn't sound like me. I hit him until he stopped moving. I hit him until the noise changed from a thud to a splash. I hit him until the papers, the MP files, the photos of me were soaked in something dark and sticky. I stood there, heaving, the brass weight slipping in my wet hand. The only sounds were the air conditioner rattling, trying to cool the slaughterhouse I had just created. I ran. I ran through the dark house, fumbling with the dead bolts, my bloody hands slipping on the metal. I ran down the driveway, into the pitch-black road, screaming for help, until a delivery truck almost hit me. I thought it was over. I thought I had survived. I was wrong. I wasn't charged with murder. I had the bruises to prove self-defense. I had the terror. But Mr. Sterling, Anthony Sterling, he had a family. A very rich, very powerful family with very expensive lawyers. They didn't put me in prison. They did something worse. They told the world we were lovers. They released emails, forged, obviously, but the who checks, where I confessed my undying obsession. They painted a picture of a mentally unstable, fired junior employee who latched onto a kind, elderly mentor. They said I snapped when he tried to set professional boundaries. They said it was a crime of passion. The lawsuit for wrongful death and emotional distress was for $3 million. I obviously couldn't pay it. I lost everything. My apartment, my savings, my name. Now I live in my mom's basement. I'm 24 years old and I'm unhirable. If you Google my name, the first 10 pages are articles about the obsessive insistent. I can't even get a job bagging groceries because they run a background check and see the girl who poked her boss's head with a paperweight. I sit here in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator upstairs. It sounds a bit like the air conditioner in his office. I spend my days looking at job boards, but I never apply. I can't. I'm too scared. Not of the rejection. I'm scared of the acceptance. I'm scared of what happens when the door closes and the nice boss smiles. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't obsessed. I just wanted to do a good job. I just wanted to work.
Thank you so much for watching or listening. The things that go bump in the night are hungry for attention. By liking and subscribing, you're telling me you want more. You're helping me bring even more chilling tales and terrifying content to life.